welcome to this review of the 2009 version of Friday the 13th. As always, I am your host, Captain Jackhammer, and I thank you for joining me. So, here's how the movie starts. Three nubile young things take their top off. Two of them have hot sex with other guys. And it's all done at the same forest by the same crystal lake where all those camp counselors were butchered back in 1980. And that's pretty much where the comparison to the 1980 original Friday the 13th movie ends. It's important to understand this is not a remake of the original Friday the 13th. I wouldn't even consider it a reinvention. They are calling it a reboot of the franchise. And so with that in mind, let us continue. This Michael Bay production is a graphic homage to the series that helped turn simple slasher pictures into a formula for success. And it may have Michael Bay's big budget to it, and it's every bit as efficient and heartless as the original Friday movies, but for all their attempts at jolts, it's just not scary at all. Okay, so the movie starts and we are treated to a blameless quintet of pot lovers murdered after they come to the ruined Camp Crystal Lake, because there's weed growing there. 6 weeks later, we meet a new group of 7 young people on a beer and booze blast at a rich boy's daddy's cabin, and then a hunky biker shows up. And he's looking for his missing sister, who was with the original group of campers that went missing 6 weeks prior. Jenna wants to leave her sex shots and bong-hitting friends to help him find her. Now, I understand that no slasher film, certainly none of the Friday the 13th films, are Capri-esque in their design and implementation. But the difference between the best slasher film ever made and the worst slasher film ever made is probably about as wide as a machete. They all turn bloody, horrific murders into comic sport, all feature a faceless, soulless, masked slasher, and all have plot holes in it so big you could drive a Zamboni through them. And that's fine, because that's what we go to see these slasher films for anyways, is the comic way they are going to kill, some teenager. But the best slasher films are the ones that make you care and have some feeling for the characters that are in the movie. With the original 1980 version of Friday the 13th, you cared about each one of those camp counselors because you got to know them as the film progressed. That doesn't happen here. We may feel worried for a second when an actor that we recognize, like Aaron Yo from Disturbia, who for some reason is still playing college potheads when he's 30 years old. But anyways, he wanders into a workshop filled with cutting tools and sharp objects, and you just know this guy's going to buy it. But we only worry about it for a second because we didn't really get to know the character. And of course, we can all laugh at the GPS iPod nerd who sings Motoring at the top of his lungs in the middle of the forest and see that he's going to be the first to die. And rightly so, he should have died. But you don't really care because you don't end up caring about any of these characters. And you don't see anything different in this movie that you haven't seen in any of the other Friday the 13th movies. This Friday the 13th movie takes elements from all the other Friday the 13th movies. And I think that's where its biggest failing is. You see, with all the other Friday the 13th movies, you always seen something that was different, something you had not seen before. And that's just not the case here. Now let me explain. You see, in the original Friday the 13th movie, you didn't know who was doing the killing. You had no idea until almost the end of the movie when it's revealed that the mother's doing the killing, and she is pissed off because camp counselors in the 50s who were off having sex let her son drown, and so she's taking it out on anybody that comes to this camp. In part 2, it's Jason doing the killing, who is avenging his mother's death. In part 3, it was made in 3D, which was a big thing in the mid-80s, trying to make movies into 3D. So you had that different aspect. And in part 3 is when he actually first gets the mask. In part 4, the big thing was it was the final chapter, and he was going to die. And he was killed by a little kid. And at the end, it seemed like the little kid was going to take up the mantle of Jason if you actually watched it at the end. So that was different. Now in part 5, Jason's not even the killer. He's not even in the movie except in some hallucinations or dreams that the kid that killed him, Tommy, is having. It's some guy's father doing all the killing, acting like Jason. In part 6, you actually get to see Jason come out of the grave and come back to life. In part 7, you have some girl who has telekinetic powers to fight Jason. In part 8, Jason takes Manhattan. He goes there. In part 9, this guy eats Jason's heart and becomes Jason. And then in Jason X, Jason's in space, which was an interesting concept, I thought. And then, of course, there's Freddy versus Jason, which, you know, it's not exactly a true sequel to the Friday the 13th franchise, but, you know, the title says it all. There's always something different. And this movie, this 2009 version, didn't have anything different. And for every cheap scare, and for every lowbrow, slack-jawed, knuckle-dragging, three-tooth Hilligan that shows up, for all the random moments of nudity, Friday the 13th just comes off as quaint and not terrifying at all. Therefore, I can only give the 2009 version of Friday the 13th a 3 out of 10. Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Jackhammer, and I will see you next time.